Welcome to Fox 55's Green and Gold Gridiron.
Thanks for joining us on Fox 55's Green and Gold Gridiron. We are at Scotty's in Schofield. The man standing next to me celebrating a birthday this week, so a little older, a lot wiser. Bill Ferrario, everyone.
Excited to be here, Brian. 36, the big 3-6. So I'm excited to be here and excited for the show.
Congratulations on that. Jana Wimmer and Keith Rodink will be along in just a bit. I am Brian Groff. Let's get into this. Not a lot of positives to take out of the trip to Detroit with the Packers. Offense gets off to a slow start. Again, it's a theme in this season. This time they have a fumble that's returned for a touchdown. What do you take away from this game?
You know, it was a slow start. It was a very challenging game on offense. I actually take positives out of the game that I was very pleased with the defense side of the ball. Only giving up 10 points against a solid Detroit Lions offense. That's my biggest takeaway of the game. We have a lot to work on offense, a lot to work on in other phases of the game. But defensively, I think they stepped up. If they can maintain that, I think it'll be a positive.
Speaking of the takeaways, the defense did take the ball away 3 times, but time of possession went in favor of Detroit. They're the best in the NFL when it comes to that stat. But that defense couldn't get off the field on third down, especially in that drive that sealed it for the Lions.
It was challenging, especially at the end. And one of the stats is if you win the turnover battle, I believe it's 80% of the time you're going to win that game. And in Sunday's game, it was a challenge, and I think it was a challenge because of the time of possession. That definitely hurt us.
For the offense, they're just not finding a rhythm. You can look at offensive line. You can look at running backs. You can look at tight ends. You could say James Jones isn't around. They don't have that third receiver, but it just seems like it's a little bit of all those, and this is what it's adding up to.
There was a little confusion out there, and I think it's the guys that are on this team today have to step up. We could talk about guys that have moved on, guys that have retired or switched teams, but it's these guys, whether young or old, they have to get on the same page and go out there and perform.
To give us a little more insight into the offensive ineptness, that would be Jana Wimmer joining us now with more on the Packers offense. Jana?
Thanks, guys. And you guys kind of touched on it. The Packers offense really struggled Sunday against the Lions. They managed just 223 total yards. And guys, Eddie Lacy, who was pretty powerful last year, is averaging just 3.1 yards per carry, and I know that's something we're going to talk about a little later.
Definitely. Thank you, Jana. Eddie Lacy getting stopped for that safety. We'll talk about the play that led up to that a little bit later on in the show in Bill's Breakdown. We'll also have our Titletown topics. Coming up after the break, we will introduce you to our special guest, the former Packers running back who now works for the Green Bay Packers. Stick around. Much more to come here on Fox 55's Green and Gold Gridiron. We are back at Scotty's in Schofield, having a great time talking Packers football. Brian Groff alongside Bill Ferrario, and we welcome in Keith Rodink from Packer Report Magazine.
Thanks, Bill. Glad to be back. Back in the black shirt. I'm mourning the death of the Packers offense, apparently.
And this week, I'm going to put it on Bill to introduce our special guest.
Well, tonight's guest signed with the Packers as a rookie free agent in 2002 out of Notre Dame. We actually overlapped as teammates in 2002. Played 60 career games with the Green Bay Packers from 2002 to 2005, and now works with the Green Bay Packers in the as a player alumni coordinator. Please welcome Tony Fisher.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Thanks for being here, Tony.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me.
And as Bill mentioned, you now work for the Packers, but it was sort of an extension from your playing career. You come in as that undrafted free agent. You did a lot of work in the community. And how did that help you transition into what you're doing post-career?
I think it was almost like a seamless transition. You know, when I was a player here with the Green Bay Packers, I did a lot in the community. And when the opportunity presented itself to come back and work for the Packers, it was like a no-brainer for me. You know, come back to the only community-owned football team and have the opportunity to help players and alumni get out there in the community. It's just been a tremendous experience so far.
Tony, I have to ask you here, because I know a little bit of both sides. Do you think it's more challenging dealing with the amount of requests you get from the Packers or dealing with all the players and their schedule and trying to make sure guys are on time for everything? Because we know all athletes, once you leave football, time sort of goes out the window.
Yeah, time does go out the window a little bit, but there's always some guys that you know you could continuously depend on. But then we do receive a lot of requests, for players on a constant basis. You never know how many you're going to receive in a week. You might get 200-300 a week.
Now, Tony, you were one of the most active guys in the community when you played. I think you had something like over 60 appearances. And what are some of the things you're working with now with the current players? I know Edgar Bennett has his bowl-a-thon, and there's a couple other things right in the Green Bay community.
Well, we do a lot of stuff, Boys and Girls Club, Boy Scouts of America. Obviously, a lot of people know about our Packer Tailgate Tour, where we bring alumni and current players, and we travel around the state of Wisconsin and pretty much just give thanks for supporting us. At the end of the day, there's no appearance or no organization too big or too little that we will not do.
That tailgate tour came up to Merrill, so it was in our area, and a couple of the guys had these fun Uper hats. I bet you have some fun stories from that tour, just dropping in on kids maybe playing at the playground, or we talk about fans and how obsessed they are with the team. But what kind of things stand out for you when you were traveling around the state?
Obviously, like you mentioned, the hats, the Stormy Cormers, I think that's what they're called. All of us had those hats, and that was a great experience just to see that small company produce such mass amounts of those hats. But then also when it comes to like the playground, we had donated a playground in Hayward, and we was just able to build that playground just last month just due to the hard winter that we had this year.
So was that like a reality TV show? Could we have put cameras in there to see you and current guys, Brad Jones, Mason Crosby, former guys, Paul Kaufman, James Lofton, to put all those football players together and then spend, how long were you in that bus?
We was out on the road for a week. I think it's a great experience. Like you said, like I'm a former player, but now I'm on the administration side. But then you have, like you said, Mason Crosby, Brad Jones, Jared Bush. We get to hear those stories from James Lofton, Paul Kaufman, and Lynn Dickey. Well, even Mark Murphy was along on the trip too. So you get to hear the stories from the older perspective of the way football was played back then compared to what it is now.
What stands out for you from your playing career? You can look at the stats, and you're a versatile guy. You can catch the ball. You can run the ball. What kind of things stand out for you from your career with the Packers?
I think now it's just like backs are a little bit shorter. I guess I was considered a tall back. I'm 6'2", and even when I was playing, we had Amon Green and Najee Davenport, and Najee is like 6'1", 6'2", and Amon is 6 foot. And so, I think the backs are a little bit smaller. You got a lot of scat backs now. Whereas
James Starks is 6'2", though.
That he is. James is kind of built like I was.
He really
when I was
is. He
playing.
really is. Kind of that long,
exactly.
broad shoulder.
Exactly. So I think, the game is changing a little bit. But, at the end of the day, running backs are running backs. We're always around.
You were the AP Player of the Year in Ohio back in 1997. From what I understand, they have an award named after you now. Is this is it a newspaper? Someone each year wins the Tony Fisher Award. Explain that a little bit for us.
Well, I'm fortunate enough to be one of the all-time leading scorers, as far as touchdowns. My senior year in high school, I scored over 40 touchdowns. And also, going into my senior year, I didn't play my junior year a lot. I missed maybe 5 games due to an ankle injury, but was able to bounce back my senior year and rush for 2,200 yards. And so, before they named the award after me, they pretty much calculated had I played my junior year that I would have rushed for almost 9,000 yards. Because as a sophomore, I was able to rush for 1,700 yards and 25 touchdowns. Then I came back to junior year, injury play, rushed for maybe 900 yards and still had almost 10 touchdowns. And then my junior year was able to my senior year, I was able to explode for 2,240 touchdowns. And just a couple years ago, they decided to name the award the Tony Fisher Award after me, which was a tremendous honor because I went to the same high school that Robert Smith, the former Minnesota Vikings running back, and some of his records I was able to break. But he was also a Gatorade, I think he was a 2-time Gatorade Player of the Year coming out of high school. So for me to have that honor was tremendous.
Tony, I hear all those numbers. You must have had a phenomenal offensive line in high school.
Honestly, we did. We had a couple guys, 6'2", 6'3", 300 plus. Okay. For high school, that is big.
It is.
You know, and I was a 6'1", 200-pound running back. So we was pretty big. We was a nice little powerhouse for our public school.
Sounded like you pounded it down their throats, defenses around Ohio. Let's turn our attention now to Titletown topics. And Jana Wimmer, what's topic number 1?
Hey guys, Packers rookie Clinton Dix recorded his first career interception on Sunday. It was the first Packer safety to have an interception since December of 2012. Is that surprising to you? Concerning? What do you make of that?
Bill?
To me, it doesn't surprise me, doesn't concern me one bit. I'm actually happy. I'm glad he got an interception. Hopefully there's more in his career. But I'm happy we have a safety back there that what I see with Clinton Dix is we have a safety that's going to be making tackles back there and is going to bring more of a force, which I think Green Bay might have been lacking in that secondary, bringing some feared receivers coming across the middle. That's what I'm excited about. Interceptions, great, but I want a safety that's going to spark a little fear in the receivers' heads before they come across the middle.
Next up for the Packers is the Bears, and they're coming off of 2 big-time, prime-time wins. For the Packers, this is also the second in a 3-game stretch of NFC North games. Is there such thing as an early must-win game for the Packers, and if so, could this be it?
Tony, is it always a must-win? It's Bears week.
Honestly, any game in the division is always a must-win. But at the same time, being competitive as football players, every game is a must-win no matter what.
I mean, the pressure's definitely amped up after what happened in Detroit. So, I mean, the worst thing that you can do is lose 2 of these, lose 3 of them. So, I mean, it's the way they looked. I think this needs to be a get-right game for them.
And then they have the Vikings right after that. We are going to take a break. When we come back, we'll have topics 3 and 4 and Bill's breakdown. Much more to come here on Green and Gold Gridiron.
Welcome back to Green and Gold Gridiron. We are at Scotty's in Schofield. It is time for Titletown topic number 3, and for this one we take a look around the NFL. Peyton Manning led the Broncos. They came from behind to tie the Seahawks. The game went into overtime. The Seahawks won the toss. They got the ball, scored a touchdown, game over. Peyton Manning and the Broncos never got to touch the football. So guys, do you think that the NFL should go to where both teams get a try in overtime?
They did change the rules a little bit over the last couple of years, but still, you look at a game like this one where Peyton Manning doesn't touch the ball. I don't know who wants to take this one first. Bill?
I'll take it first.
Go first. What do you think?
They already changed the rule enough that if one team kicks a field goal, the other team gets an opportunity. And I don't think the rule at this point needs to be changed. I guess you could look at – I could go back both ways on it. One, just score more points in 4 quarters. You don't have to complain in overtime or anything like that. 2, I guess if you are going to change the rule, as long as at the end of that overtime period it stops, I'd be okay with the rule change at that point. But I hear a lot of people talking about, look at what college does. Well, college also goes, could go an extra hour, and I don't think that's something that needs to be brought into the NFL season.
Let them go an extra hour.
What's that?
Let them go an extra hour.
We're already complaining about injuries and stuff. I don't see that. I see it being more of a problem than a positive.
I don't like it. I don't like it. I mean, watching that game, I understand, okay, if you kick the field goal, then the other team's going to get it. But I don't know. We were talking about, you see Peyton Manning just sitting there stewing on the sideline. I mean, I want to see what happens when that other team gets the ball back in their hands.
What do you think, Tony? Would you like to see something similar to college or high school, or is it good the way it is?
It's tough. I would have loved to see Peyton Manning have that opportunity to see if he could bounce back. So at the end of the day, Seattle scores a touchdown. Give Peyton Manning his due opportunity to try to lead Denver down there to score a touchdown. If they don't score, game over, period.
Exactly. Good discussion. Jana, topic number 4.
Yep, and for topic number 4, we always get the fans involved, and we have Carol Pitsley here who has a question for you guys.
Okay, how come the Packers don't use the screenplay to the running backs like they did with Tony?
Guys?
Screenplay always a staple of that offense. Are we not seeing it enough?
I'll tell you, well, it's because we don't have Tony Fisher now. That's why
what
we're
I
not
was
using
thinking.
it as much. But I think different plays like that. They come at different segments of the game, and depending on how the offense is flowing, you go into a game with a script, plays that you want to run. And you may have screens on one week, you may not have them on, but ultimately it comes down to two, you got to be able to execute them. And maybe they're not being executed in practice. Maybe they see other opportunities. Maybe they don't see getting around the edge against a specific team being an easy possibility. So there's a multitude of reasons. I think we'd all like to see them, but we want to see plays that work as well.
And we just didn't see enough of those in general. I mean, the running game has been a struggle. I mean, Lacey he doesn't look good. He doesn't look like what we're accustomed to. I think Starks needs to get the ball more. Lacey almost appears tentative. I see too much east-west and not enough north-south. I'm sure it's not the offensive line, Bill.
Well, and no, I will take credit on the O-lineman. We were talking about this before, where I think we always say it starts with the line up front. And if the O-lineman and tight ends aren't blocking well, it's going to be a very difficult challenge to have a good running game. And I think that's what we're showing with Green Bay right now. We're having a challenge blocking up front, and we've seen it time after time. And I think that's difficult. And we could have Tony talk on when that line's not blocking well, not getting that push, how much more of a challenge it is to have a successful run as opposed to when that blocking seems to be executed properly.
This is my thing. Just like Aaron came out and said today, everybody just relax.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's still early. We have the offense is going to take a little bit of time, you know, to gel together. You know, we're coming in with a new center and everything, but at the end of the day, I think our offense is going to be just fine.
I think
And there is a history of the past few years not getting off to the greatest start record-wise, but then turning things around and getting into a little bit of a roll. We're going to take a final break. When we come back, we will have Bill's breakdown, and we'll do our NFL picks. Heading into our final block on Fox 55's Green and Gold Gridiron, it is time for Bill's breakdown for that. It's a 7-7 game, second quarter. Lions with a 3rd and 10 at the Packers' 49-yard line. Matthew Stafford gets picked off at the 1-yard line by Devon House. The ball was spotted at the 1, Bill. I think a lot of people looking at that thought with the momentum going into the end zone, it would have been a touchback.
It was. A lot of people thought that. I thought that. Still watching the play, we're talking about the rules here, and as Brian, me and you were talking earlier today, there's a lot of these rules that not everybody, players, coaches, especially fans, know every little detail of every little rule, and this is one in particular that I think a lot of people found out as it happened.
Because if a receiver catches it and slides in, that's a touchdown.
Correct, but that this is a defender. They said he had contact at the 1-yard line, and his momentum took him into the end zone, so that's where they spotted the ball at the 1. It's one of those. Obviously was not in the Packers' favor, but by the rules, that's the way it's stated.
And the reason why it was so pivotal is because there's a safety the next play, and then you give the ball right back, and all of a sudden a field goal comes out of that next drive, so they got 5 points out of it.
Absolutely. Just a tough break for the Packers. Would have, I think everybody wished it was a touchback and we were starting at the 20-yard line. Could have been a totally different outcome of that situation.
Especially when
horrible
points
call.
were at a premium.
Horrible
You thought it was horrible?
Horrible. I mean, I probably watched it 20 times, full speed, slow-mo, frame at a time on the DVR. Horrible. Followed up by an even worse play.
We are going to turn our attention now to our NFL picks, and we'd been doing primetime picks the first couple weeks. What we decided to do is kind of change course a little bit, and Jana's going to introduce what we're going to do here, and it's teams that we're really more familiar with, and some of these teams that are playing on Fox 55, and of course your Green Bay Packers are playing noon on Fox 55. So let's go through the picks.
Yeah, so what we're going to do is we're going to pick the NFC North game. So we're starting with the Packers at the Bears, and I'm going Packers.
I don't think I'm going against them. I think they bounce back.
Packers. The offense will.
I know the owner Scotty's love the Bears, but they're not going to beat the Packers. So no Packers.
Real quickly, guys, why? Give me one sentence why you think they'll bounce back.
I think they're going to bounce back because I think the defense had a solid performance, and the offense just has to bounce back. Bottom line.
Breakout game for the offense.
Yeah, absolutely. The offense isn't going to be worse, and I love what the defense is doing. I love what they've done the last 6 quarters. So
there's some hope
something
there.
to be encouraged.
Next game.
Falcons at Vikings, and I'm going to go Minnesota girl. I'm going Vikings. Teddy Bridgewater's going to get it done.
I went against Atlanta last week, so I'm going with Atlanta. I don't see the Vikings winning.
Atlanta. I'm sorry.
It's okay. I understand.
Too much drama in Minnesota right now.
They've been
Keep
struggling.
that up there so we see that was 4-1.
And then we finish up with Lions at Jets, and I'm going with the Lions. I think they're pretty tough this year.
I see the Lions with a letdown, and I think NFC North teams seeing a lot of the Jets. I think the Jets come out and get a win.
I think the Jets have been really close, and I'm still sticking over the Lions game. I'm picking the Jets.
Sorry, got to do it.
Come on.
Going Detroit as well.
There are your picks. Now remember, Packers-Bears on Fox 55 at noon, Falcons-Vikings at 3:25. Our thanks to Tony Fisher for being our special guest this week.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming over. For Bill Ferrario, Keith Rording, Jana Wimmer, I'm Brian Groff. Thanks for watching, everyone.
Thank you for watching Fox 55's Green and Gold Gridiron.